Saturday, October 5, 2019, and this is Globespan 24x7 Week in Review. My name is Shakima. We'll take a look at some of the major stories for the week beginning Monday, September 30th, 2019 to Friday, October 5th, 2019. Guyanese living along the east and west coast along low-lying areas were Monday urged to take safety precautions against flooding as the high tide period continues. We'll take a look back at that report. The latest occurrence was earlier this afternoon at 17:18 hours. According to the Hydromet office, waves will reach a height of 333 meters. The Public Health Ministry also issued an advisory urging residents to place special attention to health, personal hygiene, vector control, food and water safety to avoid adverse effects of the flooding. Persons who are living in flooded areas are asked to stay out of the flood water as much as possible, as it can greatly reduce their chances of contracting diseases such as skin irritation, skin infection, leptospirosis, diarrhea, and other waterborne diseases. The ministry added that if it is necessary to venture into any area with floodwaters, use protective gear such as long boots, gloves, and eye protection. Further, the use of safe water for drinking, cooking, brushing your teeth, making ice and beverages is advised. Safe water is water that is treated with chlorine bleach by adding half a teaspoon to 5 gallons of water. Cover and let the water stand for 30 minutes before using, or by boiling clean water for at least 5 minutes. Cool and store in covered containers. According to the ministry, if anyone experiences any fever, coughing, vomiting, diarrhea, skin rash, cuts, sticks, bruises, injuries, and other medical conditions, they should seek immediate medical attention. The West Demerara Regional Hospital, Lenora Hospital, the Georgetown Public Hospital, and other regional and district hospitals, outpatient departments are all fully operational and equipped to provide adequate care. The Civil Defense Commission is monitoring the situation at various locations along the coast. For Globespan 24x7 News, Shakima. We'll tell you now that Mass Action's People's Movement member Singh has decided to join the civic component of the opposition's People's Progressive Party. News of his decision broke over the weekend when he appeared on a local radio station and came as a surprise to many. Speaking with Globespan 24x7 News managing editor Samuel Suknandon in an exclusive interview, Singh, who was one of the leading figures that led several mass protests that eventually led to the City Council of Georgetown ending the parking meter initiative and rescinding the contract.
Tell us the reason for your decision to join the civic component of the People's Progressive Party.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a multitude of events. What I see happening in Guyana right now is what I would term a creeping dictatorship. I mean, you go around, you see all the buildings that were normal, white, whatever, are now painted green. You know, at the very start of this government's journey or position, they put up a 10-foot wall in front of the office of the president that kept the people out. I thought that was oppressive. And just as of recently, I mean, there are these barricades around Georgetown that are inconvenient and it's unnecessary. And lately, the president has been taken to traveling around with 20 to 30 riot police in his entourage now. From already like 15 or 16 vehicles, we've gone to like 20 vehicles. That sends a message to me. That tells me that, and I've been noticing that democracy is on the wane. And to sit back and do nothing would be negligent of me as a Guyanese, as a patriot, as someone who loves my country and people.
And you think the PPP will ensure that democracy lives in Guyana?
Well, you know, I've had conversations with the leadership of the PPP leading up to my decision to join them. As I said, I'm joining the civic component, whereas I am not restrained by the rules of the party, so to speak. But they welcomed me with the independent thoughts and free-thinking ideas that I can bring from civil society as well as from the general people. You know, I don't come with ideas that are, you know, worn, that submits to, you know, a party guidance. I come with ideas that are fresh. But, you know, I mean, in terms of governance, I was part of a group called RISE, Reform, Inspire, Sustain, Educate, a constitutional reform group. I mean, we had like 10 ideas for constitutional reform. So I come with those things. And they was welcome. They says, yes, this is what we're looking for. I mean, I think they've realized that they've made some mistakes in the past, and they're willing to embrace new ideas now.
So hold
on. It's been a while, I know, but I think the final moment was the barricades last Thursday, you know, and the superintendent there, I wouldn't call his name, he was almost apologetic that he had to put up these barricades for 5 or 10 protesters from Mappim. He was like, you know, it's not necessarily, but he says this is our standing operating procedure now going forward. I'm like, what? I said, so every Thursday we will come out here just to register our natural protesters, Guyanese, and as the Constitution, you know, lets us do. He says, well, every Thursday I'll have to put up these barricades. I said, you're going to inconvenience thousands. We're going to lose thousands of man hours. He says, nothing I can do. So that was like a bulb going off in my head.
During the 2015 elections, the APNU and AFC, which now holds the office of government, had campaigned heavily and highlighted certain corrupt practices within the PPPC, which they promised to end. Asked whether he is concerned that the PPP is corrupt and may become corrupt, he had this to say.
Is that if we look at 1986, 1996, 2006, 2016, PPP did that, PNC did that, PPP, where are we going as a country? I mean, you know, back to the question though, we've had $200–300 million worth of commissions of inquiries, and nobody's been touched, locked up. So that leads me to think that maybe we were sold a bag of goods. Because if I think one commentator says that the PPP stole $100 billion each year in gold and siphoned it out, so where's that now? Is the gold just magically vanished? There are a lot of questions. I mean, but what I'm focused on is going forward, because this is such a pivotal moment in our country, and to watch democracy die, whilst I have a chance to fight it, I will not stay silent.
Despite public criticisms of the PPPC, presidential candidate Irfan Ali, Singh said he is prepared to throw his full support behind Ali for the next elections.
We need to move forward. If Irfan Ali is the presidential candidate, of course I support him, because I've thrown my lot behind the civic components and to some extent the PPP.
Singh said he is confident about his ideas being taken on board by the PPPC.
As I said, I spoke extensively with the leadership, and they're open to these ideas now. I think they lost the last election because they had gotten too arrogant, perhaps, out of touch with the people, perhaps. So when we spoke, and they asked me the exact same question, can you bring that same fervor, that same intent? And I think I can. I've learned so much from Mappim because of the much diversity of people that are in Mappim. I mean, I'm sure they'll have some new leadership now, but so I think I can bring that intensity, because what I bring is I hate to say it, but purity. I'm a Guyanese. I want to help Guyana. I want to help Guyanese people. Other thing I want to do, I'm not looking for an opportunity to, you know, take minister work or nothing like that. It's just pure, let's move forward, Guyana. We have barbarians growling at our doors 120 miles offshore. And we better be prepared. Right now, we are so far behind. I mean, we have had, what, one joint parliamentary meeting all year? That is crazy. So from that perspective, yeah, sure, I think I can bring some enlightenment, so to speak.
He is a real estate agent by profession and has a daughter who is currently reading for a degree in law. He is the son of Guyana Singh, who was a founding member and general secretary of both the PPPC and the PNC. Singh said for this reason, he feels that politics is in his DNA. Marcel Gaskin, the brother of former business minister Dominic Gaskin, has also announced his intention to join the civic component of the PPPC. Meanwhile, Public Security Minister and leader of the Alliance for Change, Kimrat Ramjatan, has expressed full confidence in being selected as the APNU-AFC prime ministerial candidate in the next elections. When asked by media operatives at an event held earlier on Monday, he said that chances are turning in his favor.
What do you think are your chances of still being selected as the prime ministerial candidate for your party in the upcoming general election?
I would want to say very good.
Why?
Yeah, well, because it is very good. That's the simple reason I'll have to say it is very good. My chances are very good. That's
Minister Ramjatan had this to say when asked to clarify what those chances are.
You don't think that Ramjatan is good enough to be a prime minister of your country, or you think that he's such a rotten character that he ought not to be? Yeah, well, it is for the people who are negotiating as to what we're going to do. And I strongly believe that, yes, it will happen.
The AFC had voted to select Minister Ramjatan as the prime ministerial candidate to be put up by the AFC. Head of State, President David Granger recently announced March 2, 2020 as the definite date of the next elections. This comes months after the government crumbled following the vote of no confidence. On Tuesday, Guyana's head of state, President David Granger, issued 2 proclamations for the holding of general and regional elections on Monday, March 2, 2020. More in this report. The President, by the power vested in him by Article 61 of the Constitution of Guyana, to, by proclamation, appoint the day for an election under Article 62, appoints March 2, 2020 as the day on which an election of members of the National Assembly shall be held. The Constitution at Article 61 states, an election of members of the National Assembly under Article 62 shall be held on such day within 3 months after every dissolution of Parliament, as the President shall appoint by proclamation. Similarly, President Granger has proclaimed that March 2, 2020, the same day as appointed under Article 61 of the Constitution for the holding of elections of members of the National Assembly, as the day on which elections of members of the Regional Democratic Councils shall be held. Article 73(2) of the Constitution states, elections of members of the Regional Democratic Councils shall be held and the councils shall be dissolved at such times. As subject to paragraph 3, the President may appoint by proclamation. President Granger on September 25, 2019, in his address to the nation, had announced that after discussions with the chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission and with his cabinet, the earliest possible date for the holding of general and regional elections will be on Monday, March 2, 2020. The President's statement followed Chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission Justice Claudette Singh's missive to him on September 19, 2019, indicating that the Guyana Elections Commission will be able to deliver credible elections by the end of February 2020. The head of state met Justice Singh on September 25 and discussed the statutory timelines for the upcoming general and regional elections. The National Assembly is now expected to be dissolved. MPs meet on October 10, 2019. For Globespan 24x7 News, Shakima Day. In light of the recent floods that have affected several villages across the country, the Civil Defense Commission on Tuesday dispatched several teams to monitor the situation and bring relief to those affected.
Villages along the coasts of regions 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 have been affected by the recent spring tides. The Ministry of Public Infrastructure has already clarified that there have been no major breaches of the country's sea and river defenses. However, Maikoni is the only exception since the earthen embankment is already vulnerable and has ongoing riprap sea defense works. The Civil Defense Commission has dispatched several teams to monitor the situation in affected villages, especially in Region 5. Some 20 cash crop and livestock farmers are affected by floods as a result of above normal high tides, with rice cultivated plots being inundated. One team led by CDC Senior Response Officer Captain Salim October visited and distributed water and cleaning detergents to assist residents in returning their homes to normalcy. The areas were visited were High Dam, Danzig, Glazers, Lust, and Prospect. This is being done in collaboration with the regional administration. The Ministry of Public Infrastructure and the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority have provided excavators to widen channels to alleviate some of the flood waters. The Guyana Livestock Development Authority and the Mahika Maikoni Aberi are also assisting farmers. On Monday, Singh Limited handed over 45 cases of antibacterial soap to the CDC as part of the cut. On Monday, the Sinco Limited handed over 45 cases of antibacterial soap to the CDC as part of its Cooperate social responsibility that will be distributed to the affected communities. The company plans to lend its support to 60 families affected by drought in Kanapang. The CDC, the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, and other agencies are monitoring and evaluating the springtide phenomenon across the country. An aerial assessment exercise aboard a GDF helicopter of a float hit Maikoni was done Monday afternoon by Lieutenant Colonel Craig. The above normal high tide remains in effect until Wednesday. Persons are urged to take necessary precautions and take heed to the health advisory. Reporting for Globespan 24x7 News, Abel Harris.
Welcome. I am Kingsley Bryan. Here's a look at some of the stories we covered this week, regionally and internationally. The ACG called on government and GCOM to respect the political rights of the Guyanese people. Members of the Association of Concerned Guyanese in Canada, ACG, Toronto on Saturday staged a protest to voice their concerns regarding the current political crisis facing the Guyanese nation, owing to what they called a dictatorship government. The group called on President Granger to respect the people and Constitution of Guyana and move forward with a smooth elections process. The group called on the Guyana Elections Commission to do their due diligence where free and fair elections is concerned. The group reiterated that Guyanese should be able to exercise their right in general and regional election without fear of doing so.
Respect the Constitution of Guyana. That is why we are here asking for democracy to be returned to our country. After 28 long years of relentless struggle, our country have made some democratic development and we have advanced, and today, after that long bitter struggle, Guyana has been completely reversed back into dictatorship. This is intolerable, this is disgusting, and that is why we are here to protest.
Given GCOM's promised readiness in February of 2020, yesterday President David Granger issued 2 proclamations for the holding of general and regional elections on Monday, March 2, 2020 in Guyana. And we'll tell you that the Bahamas plans on cracking down on undocumented migrants. The Bahamas government says it will deport undocumented migrants who survived the passage of Hurricane Dorian on September 1 and are now living in shelters. Immigration Minister Ellsworth Johnson says the shelters will not be used to circumvent the law. There is an Immigration Act, and the Immigration Act is in full effect, and the Director of Immigration understands that he must enforce it. He added, the Category 5 storm, with winds in excess of 180 miles, slammed into the Bahamas, killing at least 56 people and causing widespread destruction mainly on Grand Bahama and the Abacos Island. The government-appointed coordinator of hurricane relief efforts in Abaco, Algernon Cargill, also warned undocumented migrants against any plans of returning to the Abacos Island. Soon after the hurricane swept through the region, Johnson had announced that the government would not carry out immigration exercise at shelters for hurricane victims. And we'll tell you that NYC threatens $250,000 fine for calling immigrants illegal aliens. New York City's Commission on Human Rights announced on Thursday that residents could face up to $250,000 in fines if they use terms such as illegal alien with intent to demean, humiliate, or harass a person. The city tweeted on Thursday, "Hate has no place here," end of quote. In its announcement, the city listed a number of offensive ways to address immigrants, including threatening to call Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, or harassing someone for their limited English proficiency. It clarified that calling ICE with a discriminatory motive was a violation. It was not immediately clear what New York City would consider a call to ICE lacking in discriminatory motive. And a new poll shows Canadians are unhappy with government's immigration work. According to a new poll, the Trudeau Liberals are offside with a good number of Canadians. Canadians remain supportive of immigration, the kind done through regular channels, but have big concerns when it comes to people crossing the border illegally at places like Roxham Road in Quebec. Those are the findings of a poll conducted by Dartmouth or Blue Voice of Canada Poll. While Canadians give the Trudeau Liberals decent marks on the handling of regular channel immigrants and those who seek refugee status through normal channels, 2/3 think the government is doing a bad job of handling those who walk across at what the government calls irregular points of entry. In January 2017, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau posted his infamous "Welcome to Canada" tweet. More than 50,000 people have crossed Canada's border illegally from the United States to claim refugee status. And we'll tell you that Amnesty International is investigating U.S. airstrike in Somalia. Rights body, the Amnesty International, says an investigation has found that a U.S. airstrike in Somalia in March killed civilians and not militants, as the U.S. AFRICOM alleged at the time. It says the U.S. failed to investigate claims that the 3 victims were farmers and had no ties with Islamist militant group Al-Shabaab. The 3 men were returning from their farms to their homes in the lower Shabelle region when their car was targeted. 11 people interviewed, including co-workers and family of the men killed, were adamant that none of the men were a member of Al-Shabaab. AFRICOM said in March that its assessment had determined that the airstrike had killed 3 terrorists, and it was aware of civilian reports that there were casualties. Meanwhile, we also reported that the World Bank bars Chinese company from participating in its projects. The World Bank has said the China Railway First Group, Guyana Company Limited, has breached procurement guidelines relating to the East Coast Expansion Project in Guyana. As such, the company has been barred from participating in any of its projects. According to some reports, the sanctions will last for 2 years. The ban took effect starting September 17, 2019, and will run its course until September 16, 2021. China Railway has been under strict watch for failing to comply with environmental regulations on the said project. China Railway First Group Company Limited was awarded the contract for the development project, which involved extension of the 4-lane and upgrades between Better Hope and Belfield. Globespan 24x7 News reached out to the World Bank office in Washington, D.C. for more information on this story, and will provide an update once a response is received from the Media Relations Department. Separately, Trinidad and Tobago recorded hike in murders of senior citizens. A report from Trinidad and Tobago Police Service stated that the island has seen 52 elderly people aged 60 years and over murdered between the start of 2018 to present, with the first 9 months of 2019 accounting for 32 of them. According to the report, of the 32 cases this year, 6 people were arrested and charged, one of which was a family member of one of the victims. In 2018, 20 murders were reported, 7 of which were detected, with 10 people arrested and charged, and one of whom was a family member. An article published by the Trinidad Guardian showed that in 2016, a concerning 8% of the victims of serious crimes in the country have been senior citizens. Official data shows that the elderly has been victims of assault by beatings, threats and breach of protection orders, murders, rape and other sexual offenses, burglaries and break-ins, fraud offenses and larceny. Globespan 24x7 News also reported that 27 children were killed in a fire in Liberia. A fire at a Quranic boarding school east of Monrovia has killed 27 children, according to Liberia's National Fire Service. The incident occurred due to an electrical shock. Fire Service Director Alex Dixon said an investigation also determined that a motorcycle full of gasoline was parked inside the school building when the fire broke out, but he couldn't confirm if the gas tank exploded. The fire gutted a dormitory and school building while students slept around midnight on September 17. Some students escaped, though it's unclear how many. The imam, his wife, and children also made it out safely. The imam said after the fire that some students were as young as 10 years old. Meanwhile, Guyanese based in New York was indicted in Medicaid fraud. 3 Guyanese based in New York have been indicted for allegedly stealing over $1 million from New York Medicaid. According to the details of the case, the trio are reported to have been billing Medicaid for false transportation services for patients who require same. Attorney General Letitia James last month broke the news of the indictment, noting the arrest of the owner of Purple Heart Transportation, Sean Ali, and a driver of the company, Lisette Joseph. Shamiza Ali, the third indicted defendant, remains at large. The transportation company is accused of submitting claims and collecting over $29 million from Medicaid for allegedly providing transportation services to patients in and around New York City. But investigations found that $19 million of that amount was for services that could not be accounted for. The defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Medicaid provides health coverage to millions of Americans, including eligible low-income adults, children, pregnant women, elderly adults, and people with disabilities. Also reported that Representative Meeks endorses announcement date for Ghana's elections. Senior member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Congressman Gregory Meeks, has joined the international community in welcoming Guyanese President David Granger's announcement to set elections for March 2, 2020. A statement from the office of the congressman said, open quote, a steadfast commitment to the Constitution and the rule of law remains in the best interest of the Guyanese people, end quote. The statement said that democratic norms must always be respected, and as such, he urged all parties to move expeditiously towards elections in adherence to the timeframes established by the Guyana Elections Commission. Separately reported that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service warned against vigilante impartiality. Police in Trinidad has cautioned members of the public that while some degree of force may be required when community watch groups intercepts a person, the force must not be of such a nature that it threatens the person's life. The warning was issued by Public Information Officer of the TTPS, Superintendent Wayne Meister, who said while the service welcomes and encourages members of the public and communities to establish watch groups to assist in the fight against crime, there is a thin line in vigilantism, where criminal charges can be laid against persons in vigilante groups. Meister explained that vigilantism is unlawful because the sole responsibility of crime fighting is that of the police service. He added that this kind of conduct has the potential to cause harm, serious injury, or loss of life, and may result in criminal charges being brought against individuals who participate in such acts. Globespan 24x7 News also reported that a thief sexually harassed secretary in T&T business place. A thief in Trinidad and Tobago, after allegedly robbing a woman and forcing her to touch his private parts, kissed the woman on her cheek and said goodbye. Police confirmed that the victim is a secretary at the San Fernando business place. The incident occurred at around 10:15 while the woman was at her place of work. The victim reported that the man walked into the business place and asked for $17 to travel home. After receiving the money, he shook her hand and walked out. However, he turned back, grabbed her left arm, and demanded all of the cash in her wallet. The woman told officers that she became afraid and handed over a further $540 to the man. Also, U.S. President unveiled order to strengthen health care for seniors. U.S. President Donald Trump will unveil an executive order aimed at strengthening the Medicare health programs for seniors, seeking to improve its fiscal position and offer more affordable plan options. The order is the Republican president's answer to some Democrats who are arguing for a broad and expansive expansion of Medicare to cover all American proposals that Republicans reject. It allows measures rolled out in recent months by the administration designed to curtail drug prices and correct other perceived problems with the U.S. healthcare system. The Medicare program covers Americans who are 65 and older and includes traditional fee-for-service coverage in which the government pays healthcare providers directly, and Medicare Advantage plans in which private insurers.
Thank you, Kingsley. Salam Namaste, good day everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Tech Beat right here on Globespan 24x7. I'm Kumar Doshi coming to you from India. Today, let's see how technology has come to the rescue of Mother Earth from plastic waste. But first, we need to understand what is plastic waste and how it is bad for us as well as the environment. From 1950s up to 2018, an estimated 6.3 billion tons of plastic has been produced worldwide, of which an estimated 9% has been recycled and another 12% has been incinerated. About 13 million tons of plastic leaks into our oceans every year. Some countries are taking strict action to fight plastic pollution, like banning single-use plastic. But just banning wouldn't solve the problem of plastic pollution that we have created. It might just slow the rate down at which plastic pollution is created. There are various companies that are taking creative approach to reduce plastic waste. One of the best use of plastic waste is making prosthetic limbs. Yes, that's right, limbs for the differently abled people from plastic. Researchers have created a lightweight prosthetic limb from discarded plastic, which they say could save healthcare providers millions and help tackle pollution. The artificial limbs are made by grinding down plastic bottles and spinning the grains into polyester yarns, which are heated to produce a light, sturdy substance that could be easily molded. The De Montfort University's team says their innovation could dramatically cut costs for healthcare providers to $12 per prosthetic socket, compared to what the current average price of more than $6,000. The researchers say, and I quote, "There are many people in developing countries that want to yield the benefit from quality prosthetic limbs, but cannot afford them. The aim of this project was to identify cheaper material that we could use to help those people, and that's what we have done," end quote. The initiative is just one of the many across the globe aimed to reduce pollution from single-use plastic. Plastic is cheap, lightweight, and durable, making it a highly versatile material. But the staggering increase in single-use plastic over the past century has come with a heavy environmental cost. So please avoid using single-use plastic. Please do not let the environment pay the price of our needs and greed. That's all for today's Tech Beat. I'm Kumar Doshi, and back to the studio in Guyana for more news to come. Thank you for watching. See you soon.
The Customs Anti-Narcotic Unit hosted a week-long training session for staff of the local drug enforcement agency with the aim of curbing the trafficking rates downwards. Deputy Head of Kanu, Leslie Ramlal, noted at the launch that while strides have been made and continued focus is being placed on the conventional narcotics, the agency is now plagued with the emergence of a new threat.
In addition to this, the destruction of 5 fentanyl laboratories within the last 3 years in one country is a clear indication that the use of synthetic drugs is now a new but rapidly expanding phenomenon within our region. And so it leaves us to ponder what should be our approach to such a trend.
The session was held under the theme stemming the flow of narcotics through capacity building and interagency collaborations. Vice President and Minister of Public Security Comrade Ramjatan, who addressed the forum, also alluded to the effects that drug trafficking can have on society.
I want to tell you that it corrupts governments. It corrupts the commercial sector of a society. It corrupts the law enforcement. This thing called drugs. The people behind it also do not care as to the consequences of what happens to young children and even adults that become addicted. They don't care.
Minister Ramjatan said drug trafficking remains a business and those involved are only concerned about their profits. He went on to detail some of the other far-reaching effects of what is deemed a scourge on Guyana that distorts the economy.
And then the principles of a good society where wealth must be accumulated as a matter of, because of working, you have all of that being toppled over, capsized, for the purpose of now just getting so much money for doing a drug run.
The Public Security Ministry said that there are statistics to prove that this is true. The minister stressed that there is also a cultural negative attached to the drug industry.
Your economy looks better when so much drugs money flowing around it and in it. And then some people feel that that's a lovely economy to have. It distorts it by virtue of so much money being in it, and you feel that your economy is doing well. It's not. It disincentivizes people wanting to invest in the country because they feel that this is a drug territory.
Minister Ramjatan said that the drug fight is not an easy one, with larger and more capable nations still waging a war on what is now becoming a corporate business that spawns a variety of criminal activities. The International Day of Older Persons is observed on October 1 each year. With that in mind, the government, through a collaborative effort between the Ministry of Social Protection and the Commission for the Elderly, are holding observances to celebrate what has been declared the Month of the Elderly on Tuesday.
The community of Baggotsville on the west bank of Demerara saw the beginning of this month's activities, with elderly villagers being treated to breakfast. Chairwoman for the Commission of the Elderly, Everett De Leon, said the Commission saw the necessity for the idea.
Well, actually, when you get old, it's like if you get back like a child. And even though you would tell pensioners not to come here early in the morning, they would still come because they have the notion that the money would finish and they wouldn't get their pension. Some persons, they're in dire need for this pension, so they don't sleep all night, sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning, they're out. And we recognize this fact, and we said that we will have to work along with them in ensuring that they have a breakfast, because as you would have heard, some of them would faint at some times. So we thought it necessary that a breakfast, a simple breakfast, should be provided for our pensioners.
De Leon said that there are reports of a few pensioners who required medical attention after being subjected to the long wait, and as such, the breakfast initiative is most welcomed. She added that this will not be a one-time thing, and residents can look forward to breakfast being served every month. The chairperson further disclosed some of the intended plans for the elderly population of Guyana.
We have great plans for you. One of the plans that we have is, well, I don't know if you would benefit from it, because the new pensioners that are coming on, they will be given the opportunity to go to the bank and withdraw their money. So you don't really have to come here. You can go to the bank of your choice to receive your pension.
De Leon noted too that with the expected oil wealth, pensioners can look forward to a sizable increase in their monthly allocations. Another resident of Region 3, who also forms part of the Commission of the Elderly, Myrtle Caldera, said she felt responsible for having a feeding program in her region.
And it's a burning concern, you know. People say to you, you live in Region 3 and you can't have that program over here. Why only Georgetown? And why are you going to town? Let us have it here. And I picked up that challenge. I told the commission, you know, I said, it's my intention to have people work with me and to launch that program in Region 3. And because it's the month of the elderly, I said this is a very fitting time for me to get that done. All right.
Caldera further added that while it was the intention of the commission to have the program rolled out at 3 separate post offices in the region, due to the flooding, the Vridenu Post Office will begin their program in November. A few of the pensioners who were in hand for the event expressed their gratitude for the initiative.
I feel real happy, I feel real joyful because we were waiting for this such a long time. But at last, with God, everything is possible, real possible. And today I'm happy, I'm proud.
I am very happy to know that y'all have chosen Bakersville Post Office to launch this breakfast. Because most of our pensioners came out here from 3 o'clock in the morning just to get an orderly number that you could collect your 2 cents and get to go about your business. At many occasions, we have people getting bad feelings here. We have to hustle and rub them up and call the family to take them in. So this that y'all present to us here, I feel so proud about it.
The pensioners also took the time to highlight some of their other pressing needs, such as adequate washroom facilities and a first aid kit. On December 14, 1990, the United Nations General Assembly voted to establish October 1 as the International Day of Older Persons, as recorded in Resolution 45-106. The day was first observed for the first time on October 1, 1991. President Granger has, however, declared October 2019 Month of the Elderly. The theme for this year's observance is The Journey to Age Equality. For Globespan 24x7 News, this is Kingsley Bryan.
A meeting of the National Emergency Operations Center was convened on Wednesday to address the recent spring tides, and an application will be made for $800 million from the contingency fund, the Department of Public Information reported. Let's take a look at that Wednesday report. Public Infrastructure Minister David Patterson says that the government will observe all the procurement laws in getting those monies. According to him, there are provisions in the Procurement Act for emergency works. The contingency fund is only accessed with the necessary approval for emergencies. The minister said that the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board will advise on how the ministry can get what is needed in the shortest possible time. During September and before the recent spring tides, the Ministry of Finance approved $460 million for emergency works at Maikoni, which is now one of the hardest hit areas by the current spring tides. Under this sum, 2 contracts were awarded to supply 10,000 tons of boulders. Another application will be made to source funding from the contingency fund to further address the needs of residents in Maikoni, particularly between Dhalsim to Fairfield. In the area identified, there is a critical 3-kilometer section of foreshore that needs emergency works. With the next period of spring tide set to begin on October 26, Minister Patterson conveyed there is a race against the clock to minimize its effects on Guyanese lives and property. Through a multi-agency approach, a concerted effort was made to bring relief to the 65 affected communities that span an area of 148 kilometers. The responses include, but are not limited to, the relocation of livestock to higher ground, distribution of sandbags to households, dredging of drainage canals, and 2 installations in communities. Director General within the Ministry of the Presidency, Joseph Harmon, said that the government is exploring the most suitable methodology for providing funds to those that have experienced loss. It is estimated that nearly 400 households were flooded. There has been a loss of livestock, in addition to produce from subsistence farmers. In the meantime, the CDC will conduct its disaster relief responses, even as the current spring tide ended yesterday, Wednesday, October 2. For Globespan 24x7 News, Shakima Day. Following an over 3-hour-long meeting on Tuesday, the Guyana Elections Commission once again failed to meet a consensus on critical issues. The commissioners opined that the meeting focused on the extension of the claims and objections period, which gave rise to much discussion and contention. One issue on the agenda is what will be done with the data collected from the suspended house-to-house registration.
It was previously decided by the Commission after the suspension of house-to-house registration to merge the data with the National Register of Registrants. However, following the Chair's determination of a comprehensive work plan for preparation for general and regional elections, the plan to merge the data became a thing of the past. On the issue of encoding of the data from the suspended house-to-house exercise, government-nominated Commissioner Vincent Alexander said that more than 180,000 entries have already been encoded and dispatched for cross-matching.
The encoding was temporarily suspended to facilitate printing of the PLE. That is about to be re-engaged. But as we understood from the report, somewhere in the vicinity of 300,000 were in process.
That now leaves for the remaining amounts to be encoded when the process resumes shortly. Alexander also stated that no merger of the data has taken place, and that the Commission decided the data should still be used for comparing data received during the claim and objections exercise. On the other hand, PPP-nominated Commissioner Bibi Shadiq stressed that the Commission is no clearer on what is being done with the data obtained from the suspended house-to-house registration exercise, as they are now being updated.
Up to last night, the chairman assured me that she would have the 42 days corrected to 35 days today. Lo and behold, we go and sit there. Here the CEO said he told her he was adding the 7 days, and she did not doubt it. And she signed that order that says 42 days. And I don't care how much she says I didn't read and I didn't count and I didn't what. I am of the firm opinion that she knew very well she was signing an order for 42 days and not 35. I am very disillusioned that we have another chairman who is taking decisions along the lines that the government commissioners are asking. Even though the commission had a decision, and that decision was not changed by the commission.
The Commission is expected to meet again on Friday to concretize those among other key plans on elections preparations. However, both Commissioners, Shadiq and Ben, have expressed there is some amount of bias as it relates to the work of the Commission, especially given the recent announcement that the claims and objections period has been extended.
We now are looking at, they have a long story about what to do with house-to-house data. We are not no clearer there. And we looked at a list of possible sub-offices that are being set up. Right. We just understood today that the claims and objections period will be run all day instead of afternoons as usually obtained in the past. So we will have claims and objections offices working all day. And we want to set up another 41 sub-offices, mostly at schools. So we are to study that and to see whether, to see how it coincides or doesn't with what happened in the past, and what if there are any objections.
The Commission has confirmed that no discussions were held on the controversial order, which required every person whose names appear on the PLE to visit the registration office in their respective areas with their national ID cards to verify their registration before being included on the official list of electors. However, an addendum to the new order stipulates that is no longer a requirement. For Globespan 24x7 News, this is Kingsley Bryan.
The Indian High Commission of Guyana, in collaboration with the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, on Wednesday celebrated the 150th anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, where a commemorative stamp was revealed. Let's take a look at that special report. Mahatma Gandhi lived by a simple motto, Karo Yamaro, do or die. Born Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi on October 2, 1869, Gandhi wore many hats: an Indian lawyer, anti-colonial nationalist, and political ethicist. He employed nonviolent resistance to lead the successful campaign for India's independence from British rule, and in turn inspired movements for civil rights and freedom across the world. In observance of his 150th birth anniversary, a packed celebration was held earlier this morning, hosted by the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center and Guyana's Indian High Commission. High Commissioner of India to Guyana, Dr. K.J. Srinivasa, in his brief remarks, highlighted that October 2 not only marks Gandhi's 150th birthday, but also coincides with the International Day of Nonviolence. He also spoke on the numerous activities being held across the world to mark this event.
To mark the 150th birth anniversary of Gandhiji, various programs are being organized since 2018, October 2nd, in every nook and corner of India and across the world. These include peace rallies, cycle rallies, tree plantation, constructive projects, competitions, debates, lectures, etc., to inspire the youth and the people worldwide.
The High Commissioner noted that one standout tribute propagated by Gandhi was the principle of self-reliance.
Today, over 1 million students from over 100 countries across 5 continents are assembling their own solar study lamps. Gandhiji's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Janto, has been rendered by over 120 prominent singers of the world. You will be seeing it shortly.
High Commissioner Srinivasa further went on to praise the Public Telecommunications Ministry and the Guyana Post Office Corporation for issuing the commemorative Gandhi Memorial postage stamp. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Moses Nagamootoo, in his address, stressed that Gandhi's humbleness and non-violent approach to issues in the past makes his contribution to the development of society even more memorable.
From all sources of wisdom, he drew the strength, the power of his knowledge, and he applied it. He had the courage to apply it in principle, in practice. So we are celebrating the life of someone who has been extraordinary, who had shown that he preferred to live the life of the common person, who was without clothing, who paid back the British with their own obsession to make money and profits and more profits by rejecting the cloth that was produced in India, that was resold to India as fabric, and which formed a great part of his movement, the Satyagraha movement, to show that you could send a message to your oppressor that you didn't have to wear their clothes, for which they pay piffle to those who made the cloth in the first place in India.
The celebration held at the Botanical Garden, where Mahatma Gandhi's monument is situated, also featured a skit recited by students on Gandhi's life-changing event at the railway station in South Africa.
Excuse me, sir. How long have you been in South Africa?
A week.
I don't know how you got a ticket.
What are you doing in this car, Coolie? Why? I have a ticket. A first class ticket. And how did you get it? I sent for it in the post. I'm an attorney. There are no colored attorneys in South Africa. Go sit where you belong.
I'll take the luggage, sir.
No, just wait a moment, please. Here, Mohandas K. Gandhi, attorney at law. I'm on my way to Pretoria. to conduct a case for an Indian firm. There are no colored attorneys in South Africa. Didn't you hear me? Sir, I was called to the bar in London and enrolled at the High Court of Chancery. I am therefore an attorney, and since in your eyes I am colored, I think we can deduce that there is at least one colored attorney in South Africa. Smart bloody kafir. Just get your black ass back to third class or I'll have you thrown off at the next station. But I always go first class. Oh yeah?
Other cultural items featured at the celebration was a screening of Gandhi's favorite bhajan, done by Lisa Punch, the recital of the prize-winning essay done by Ms. Darshini Mohabir, and a yoga demonstration by students of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center. The unveiling of Mahatma Gandhi's 150th birth anniversary commemorative stamp was done by the Prime Minister, Indian High Commissioner, and Minister of Telecommunications, Cathy Hughes. For Globespan 24x7 News, Shakima Day. A total of 322 cases are listed to be heard at the October session of the Demerara Criminal Assizes, which opened at the High Court in Demerara. This is according to the official gazette. There are 166 cases for sexual offenses, 89 for murder, 12 for manslaughter, and 30 for attempt to commit murder. There are other cases for grievous bodily harm, trafficking in narcotics, abduction, obtaining money by false pretense, conspiracy to commit a felony, robbery under arms, conspiracy to commit murder, wrongful confinement for ransom and accessory after the fact, among others. The cases for sexual offenses include rape, sexual activity with a child under 16 years, sexual activity with a child family member, carnal knowledge of a girl under 15 years, buggery, incest by male, sexual activity with a child by abusing a position of trust, and others. One of the notable murder cases involves Reagan Rodriguez, who is accused of the March 10, 2015 murder of political activist Courtney Crump-Ewing. According to reports, the bullet-riddled body of Crump-Ewing was found at 3rd Avenue Diamond East Bank, Demerara on March 10, 2015. The 40-year-old was shot twice to the temple, one to the back of the head and twice to the stomach. Meanwhile, the first ever teaching conference got underway at the Pegasus Hotel on Thursday morning. Participants were urged to come up with suitable recommendations to advance the nation's academic capacity and educational programs. Kingsley Bryan was there and filed this report.
The conference, the first of its kind, is being held under the theme Investing in Educators for Academic Growth and National Development. Participants of the conference will engage over a 2-day period to discuss educational plans and strategies and make recommendations on several platforms in the education sector. In her opening remarks at the ceremony, the Honorable Dr. Nicolette Henry, Minister of Education, urged that participants craft a comprehensive plan to align the educational sector with Guyana's development.
Academic competencies alone will not suffice. Other capabilities are equally important, such as intellectual curiosity, entrepreneurial skills, and the ability to communicate ideas. Tertiary education institutions are unique in bringing together teaching and learning, as well as fundamental and applied research. In so doing, tertiary education institutions are drivers of skills, knowledge, and certainly innovation in our societies.
As such, the Education Minister said participants should pose several poignant questions to themselves.
How can we make sure that today's students have the high skills required for the jobs of tomorrow? How can we guarantee the quality and relevance of what they learn? And to what extent should employers be involved in designing and delivering curricula? These are questions we have to confront.
Dr. Henry opined that the forum, in her mind, provides the opportunity for a higher level of intellectual exchange. Meanwhile, President David Granger, who delivered the feature address at the conference, said there is a need for curricular reform, since education must be inclusive due to our multiculturalism.
There is, my friends, in this country, a geography of perception which reflects cultural differences and disparities across the country, and which we Guyanese teachers and learners cannot ignore. Teaching in Yakusari, in Wabis, cannot be the same as teaching in Yubukari, in Rukuna. One size does not fit all. Learners are not all the same, yet curricula tend to be the same, textbooks tend to be the same, examinations tend to be the same.
The RFC stressed that education and culture are inextricably linked and must be made compatible with an inclusive system. To this end, he repeated his promise to enforce the entitlement to all qualified Guyanese of a free education. President Granger said education is the only way to maximize the nation's full potential.
Guyana will be unable to maximize the return on its natural resources unless the public education system allows for the generation of highly skilled persons, particularly in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
The president concluded that Guyana is overcoming the challenges of history, geography, and demography to be poised as a model education nation with an inclusive system. For Globespan 24x7 News, this is Kingsley Bryan.
Disclosure by Director of the Information and Press Department of the Russian Foreign Affairs Ministry that the British continues to oversee the construction of a military base in Essequibo. Guyana Foreign Ministry declared that the utterance is false and a meeting is expected between the two nations shortly. Kingsley Bryan tells us more in this report.
Unfortunately, the British are also in line with their partners, and they continue constructing a military base at the estuary of the Essequibo River, and they say it's to fight the smuggling of drugs and arms.
Several dozens of the so-called refugees from Venezuela have already arrived there. In fact, those are the people who have arrived to complete training for the recon and diversion groups in order to work in Venezuela and destabilize the situation and commit relevant actions from extremist to terrorist actions.
That was the director of the Information and Press Department of the Russian Foreign Affairs Ministry, Maria Vladimirovna Zakharova, who in August 2019, during that live broadcast, relayed that the British continue to construct a military base at the estuary of the Essequibo River. But Guyana Foreign Affairs Minister Dr. Karen Cummins reiterated that the statement is completely false.
So it's not our goal, if I can use that word, to destabilize Maduro and to cause any friction. We are a peaceful country, we abide by the rule of law, but we strive at the same time to protect our territorial integrity and sovereignty, and that's our right, you know. But we haven't, you know, that statement that was made by, I think, Maria Zahora, I think was a French, Russian activist on the margins of some youth forum. She did say so, but we had already spoken to, you know, for the retraction, asked for the retraction of that statement, for that statement to be retracted. And, you know, it's, you know, we don't agree with that statement. It's utterly false.
Additionally, Foreign Secretary Kyle Greenidge of the ministry has since requested a retraction since those claims are baseless, as there are many avenues available for verification of these claims.
This is a fabrication. Okay. And the world knows that.
International donor agencies such as the Inter-American Development Bank has been warned not to release funding for projects in Guyana since the country is being managed by a caretaker government. This call was made by opposition leader and PPPC General Secretary Barry Jack Dio. Addressing his weekly press briefing, the former president noted that there could be consequences for repayments. He made reference to the recently signed contract by the Infrastructure Ministry for the supply, design, and installation of a 150 kilowatt hydropower plant at the Shiong River.
We say to the international organizations that where they continue to use the funds, like in this case, and even this, like the hydropower, we don't have a problem with, in fact, that hydropower originated out of a program that the PPP was working on, that was led by Prime Minister Samuel Hines, the entire program for in Region 8. And therefore, we don't have a problem with the project itself. What we have a problem with is this government abusing the process and doing it in an unconstitutional way. So for the Inter-American Development Bank and all of the others who insist on disbursing funds, or a few others who insist on disbursing funds and approving contracts now that are done in contravention of our laws, they can't claim they have not been warned. They have a court ruling, etc. It will have implications for these funds in the future, repayment of the funds, because I don't think Guyanese taxpayers must repay money that has been stolen with the complicity of some of these organizations, and particularly their local offices. Because we brought this to the attention of President Moreno when he came here, the president of the Inter-American Development Bank, how the government was using the funds that had come from the international organization in their campaign. At their party activities, they disbursed these funds.
At Cato Village in Region 8 at US $2.2 million. According to Jagdeo, the coalition government remains in flagrant violation of the Constitution and the court ruling, especially given the fact that they meet every week when the Constitution states that they must resign. The former Guyanese head of state asserts that there should be no cabinet meetings now.
So that brings me to the next point, that the expenditure of this government will, given all that I've said before, expenditure that is inconsistent with the routine functioning of the government will be illegal, even in this period. And I've seen they have even accelerated the illegality. Like just recently, they awarded a contract for hydropower for $2.2 million US. They shouldn't have even done that. And well, even for smaller contracts, much less a big contract like that, over 400 million, nearly 450 million Guyana dollars. But they keep doing this in spite of the status, the illegal caretaker type of status that they have. And this is prohibited by every international convention, and even it is outside of the ruling of the CCJ, when the CCJ said you have limited authority in this period.
Assessment, most of these contracts being issued contains alleged illegal elements. Further, the opposition leader noted that the decision to issue a proclamation naming the date for elections was something that President David Granger was forced to do. This is his firm view.
So we know how we got to this point. It was only through struggle and international pressure that he decided to comply with our Constitution and set the date. However, setting the date and issuing the proclamation does not change the status of his government. His government remains unconstitutional because elections ought to have been held since March 21st. Because a lot of people keep asking me this question. Now that he has set the date, is the government constitutional and is it legal? And I have to say to them, no, they still remain in violation of the Constitution. They remain unconstitutional. This government is illegally holding the office, and even the CCJ position where they should have been a caretaker government has long been expired. And the only reason that the PPP is not fighting that issue again is because we want to focus only on the elections, on a way forward.
Meanwhile, the Guyana National Bureau of Standards is set to roll out 31 newly improved compulsory national electrical standards set to be enforced come February 1, 2020. This announcement was made at the GNBS Stakeholders Electrical Forum held at the Guyana. Let's take a look. Head of the Guyana National Bureau of Standards Product Compliance Department, Shalindra Rai, in his presentation at the forum, highlighted that along with the new electrical standards being implemented, the GNBS also produced an updated list of commodities being monitored.
To sensitize you on what is required of you to ensure compliance with the requirements of these standards, primarily since these standards are not only national standards but they are also regulations.
Rai relayed that the Bureau currently monitors 15 categories of products, both imported and locally manufactured.
So these are the products that are currently monitored by the Bureau of Standards, and basically we conduct examination to ensure compliance with established national standards, primarily to ensure consumer protection, safety and health. However, more recently, a request was received from the Government Electrical Inspectorate, which is one of the key stakeholders of the Bureau of Standards, to develop standards relating to electrical installation products, primarily due to the importation and sale of substandard electrical products on our local market. As a result of that, a number of standards were developed by the Electrotechnical Committee of the Bureau of Standards.
Also, chairperson of the National Electrotechnical Committee, Rowan Willabus, noted that the new standards were developed to foster better service and higher quality products.
Standardization is very important, and it is beneficial for those who are delivering quality products and quality service. For those who are not, they might not like this. We could be as frank as possible.
Meanwhile, Business Minister Hairaj Rajkumar stressed that the forum held was one of utmost importance as it pushes Guyana towards embracing quality standards as a tool in national development.
The Ministry of Business, through the Guyana National Bureau of Standards, is pleased to partner with the Government Electrical Inspectorate to adopt the 31 standards for electrical installation out of concern about the alarming number of substandard electrical installation products on the market. Sorry for that. That Guyanese consumers purchase. I am pleased to note that the call for the development of these standards by the GNBS, by these standards and the GNBS abilities to deliver in a short period.
The Guyana National Bureau of Standards has functioned as the key agency that supports trade and enhances business competitiveness through standards. It also provides services which are geared to protect consumers. For Globespan 24x7 News, Shakima Day. Following the passage of the no-confidence motion and the court's determination that it was validly passed, the notion of the government operating under a cloak of unconstitutionality has been touted. The government has repeatedly called on the political opposition to return to Parliament so that an extension of the electoral period can be approved given lost time due to the numerous court challenges. But the parliamentary opposition is adamant that they will not be blackmailed into returning to Parliament, but rather urge the government to abide by the Constitution and dissolve same. Attorney General and PNCR member Basil Williams at the party's press conference on Friday said that government must return to Parliament as a matter of compliance. The Minister of Legal Affairs contended that given the current circumstances, a parliamentary extension is needed, but should the opposition refuse to participate in the process, that would be tantamount to a constitutional crisis.
Since the 3 months would have been eclipsed, whilst the matters were proceeding through the courts, that 3 months would have gone. So the recourse now is to have an extension for a longer period on the 1067. And of course, you know, the The leader of the opposition has been saying that he's not interested, etc. But of course, he's free to say whatever he likes in George Street or on the streets of Georgetown or on the streets of Guyana. So the test is when Parliament is resumed and the matter is called, he must go there and say he's not conforming with the, complying with the Constitution. Once he does that, obviously it would create a situation of conflict, I would say, a crisis situation, which would impel the doctrine of necessity, and of course.
According to Williams, that would leave the responsibility to the head of state, President Granger, who he maintains continues to act in accordance with the Constitution and the determinations of the CCJ. Minister Williams.
All these things were put before the CCJ, and it would be left to the President, who has the remit both to name a date by proclamation and to dissolve Parliament by proclamation. So it would therefore be resolved in that matter. The President has already named the date anyway. He has been saying that consistently, that he will name a date when advised by Jacob. Jacob having advised him, he named the date. So we have an election date.
Concluded that the government has always maintained that the conduct of any elections falls under the purview of the CHICOM. So it is always a imprudent decision to compel the President to name a date for elections without a concrete timeline from the Elections Commission. In other news, despite having rejected the initial proposal put forward by the Working People's Alliance and one of its leaders, distinguished economics professor Clive Thomas, of direct cash transfer of some projected oil revenues, opposition leader Barra Jagdeo has now backpedaled and views this as a viable option. However, Jagdeo, former president, feels that the proposal has some flaws and is unrealistic when it comes to distributing US $5,000 per household, would cost in excess of US $1 billion per year, and when Guyana will only collect US $4,300 million per year for the first 4 years. The coalition.
So at this stage, I am not going to say that the PPP will not consider cash transfer. I'm not saying that. The PPP has to keep its mind open to anything, any method that would reduce poverty, get more jobs to people, get our children to school and getting the best quality education and healthcare. And I don't, in fact, in our manifesto, we're going to be talking about conditional transfer, targeted transfers to vulnerable group right at the beginning. So we have to help single parents. We have to help children. We have to help the older people first. And as our capacity grows and we get more money, we constantly have to see that it's sustainable though. We have to constantly see that whatever we do don't cause us to be worse off than before. And so we will keep an open mind to cash transfers to Guyanese. We'll keep an open mind and we'll have to go through, look at it carefully and go through all the technical issues to see that you have enough money to actually do this and that it's sustainable in the long term.
We have joining us tonight live to offer his comments and views on the opposition leader's statement, political scientist Dr. David Hines. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Hines.
Hello, good afternoon. Good evening.
Good evening. So I just want to refer to a recent quote in the media. You said in the media, and I want to quote, "It would be suicidal for the coalition to go to an election in which the PPP endorses cash transfers, and they don't. With the PPP endorsing it, it becomes a top electoral issue," end quote. Are you at all surprised by the opposition leader's statement on the cash transfers?
No, I am not. And let me say why I'm not. It's going to shock a lot of people. Mr. Jagdeo is a serious economist. He's a serious political person. And the proposal from the WPA is a serious proposal. And Mr. Jagdeo obviously understands the economics of cash transfer. You listen to him. He understands clearly the economics, and I dare say he also understands the politics. It is a very mature position from Mr. Jagdeo, and I have no doubt in my mind that it was well considered by him before the announcement.
Okay, we also have activist Dr. Yog Mahadio. Thanks for joining us also, Dr. Mahadio.
You're welcome.
Okay, I just want to ask, from a background in management and finance, do you think the proposal is workable and could be catered for once oil is on stream in Guyana?
No. The short answer is no. If I may, I do not disagree. In fact, I support Dr. Jagdeo's call, and in a way I support Dr. Hines and the rest. However, I think the bits and pieces that we need to pick out from this is the fact that a thorough analysis needs to be done. I mean, the notion of making cash transfers across to any number of persons is in my mind, no offense meant to you, Dr. Hines, a bit of electioneering, a bit of bubble in the air. For me, infrastructure is important, free education is important, free electricity, all of these things we need to put in place. However, in terms of the cash transfer, I would prefer to see an incentive-based system in place rather than just a free-for-all or just a gift out of the central coffers.
Okay, I just want to refer back to you, Dr. Hines, though. Based on the statement that Dr. Mahadio made, do you think that the opposition leader statement is just for political reasons?
No, I don't think so. And our proposal is not for political purposes. I have to disagree with Mr. Mahadi. Can I get his name? Mr. Mahadio, sorry. Listen, Professor Clive Thomas is a leading economist. He's not going to put forward a proposal before thinking it through. People are now talking about we have to think this through. They have to think it through. We have already thought it through. We have taken into consideration all the pros and the cons, and obviously Mr. Jagdeo has done so. This is a proposal that is put out there. Places like the University of Guyana, government, the opposition, they should set up technical teams to study this proposal, to put in place suggest modalities for its implementation. But it's a well thought out proposal. And let me say this, it is a policy that benefits 1.2 billion people in the world, over 70 countries. It is not something new. The United Nations, the World Health Organization, the World Bank, they've all studied and thought this through. And so I don't understand why people who are now encountering this thing, they have to think it through. It's a well thought out policy. It's a policy that is grounded in common sense. The effects of the policy have already been studied. It is linked, as Mr. Jagdeo pointed out, the policy is linked to increase the quality of education that people get. It has led to increase in terms of healthcare. It has other spin-offs for the economy. So I think people who don't know the proposal should just shut up or study the proposal and then come back and talk. We have a lot of people, as Dr. Thomas has said, he called them ignars. These are people who don't know anything about cash transfer, but are prattling about it, and they're just muddling the conversation. I am very sorry.
Well, sorry, you should listen. No. You should listen to yourself a little bit. Is it the same Mr. Thomas that fired or got 10,000 workers fired in this country? Where is the economic policy in that? And everybody, the WPA, you included, I haven't heard a word about constitutional breach. I haven't heard anything, but you're in bed with the government and you're now talking about cash transfer. Now, Mr. Moderator, let me just say this. I'm wondering if we have seen the same clip from Dr. Jagdeo, because I am not seeing a full endorsement from Dr. Jagdeo or Mr. Jagdeo for this cash transfer proposal. He has said he is not opposed to a cash transfer. I can't put words in his mouth, but this is what I'm reading from what he said. He is not opposed to it so long as certain things are in place. He doesn't want a cash give out. He wants an incentive-based system. At least that's what I'm seeing here. So
and neither the WPA.
So the notion
of the WPA doesn't want a free-for-all giveaway. Mr. Jagdeo has shown an understanding of cash transfer. You have not shown an understanding of cash transfer. And so you need not speak on something that you don't know anything about.
I disagree.
And for your information, For your information, Dr. Thomas did not fire 7,000 workers. Dr. Thomas recommends the government, the state should not do those.
No, and I will not allow that to be said. Not when I'm here. No,
this
sir.
Is because it is the truth. You know nothing about Guyanese politics, and you're prattling off. You need to go home. Do your homework and come back.
You should go home, because let me tell you something. You are part of a government and you are saying nothing. It's you had a COI that recommended not to close their estates. You're doing nothing. The economy is not bankrupt because of the WPS seat in the government.
Dr. Thomas turning in his grave today. The recommendations of the COI for your information.
No. Rodney would be turning in his grave today for all those of us who backed him, not just you, but today what has the WPA done for the people?
You ran away from Rodney. Where were you when Rodney were wrong?
You should check.
What Rodney signed? You did not even mention the name Rodney. Where were you? Were you at Rodney signed? Are you in the WPA? Are you marching? Did you go to jail?
You should really check your history. There are many people in this country who have done a lot of work and struggle a lot.
You guys are imposters.
Your pompousness speaks to, and let me see how many votes it will get you this time, but I can tell you the willy-nilly adoption of any cash giveaways is exactly reflective of what this government has done to the contracts. They are contracts. Where is the local content policy? Where is your voice for local content policy?
Do you gentlemen see the coalition government coming out with any endorsement for cash transfer?
Talk to the experts.
Well, I can tell you. I can tell you. If Granger had anything, any inkling of an endorsement of something, he would have come out in front. But what's been happening, he has no way, or he has there's nothing in his mind presently to say he's going to endorse this. So it just gives the WPS some electoral kind of platform to stand on to earn some votes. So it's wanting to stay relevant.
The AFC
is lobbying within the coalition for them to speak about this and bring about that discussion about cash transfers.
The AFC has already endorsed cash transfers. The WPS proposed it. The PPP, in a common sense way, has endorsed the cash transfer in principle. The only major political party that has not come out for cash transfer, it is the PNC. The PNC is now under pressure to endorse this proposal because it has now become a major electoral plan. This is going to be the major electoral issue. I can tell you, I've been into 20 communities over the last 2 months, and it is extremely popular on the ground. No political party which is looking to win an election can afford not to embrace cash transfer in one form or the other.
And that's right, because the entire country is impoverished.
Dr. Mahadi, your closing remarks.
Well, the entire country is impoverished, so who wouldn't want to embrace such a notion? But I tell you what you're doing. You're also announcing to the world, leave where you're living and come here. We're going to give you $5,000 a month. There needs to be system in place. There needs to be proper thinking of this. I am not opposed to the cash round, but it has to be an incentive based, not a free for all. And Dr. Hines has rightly said it is not intended to be, but we need to read and we need to be very, very aware that the current government has lost favor because it's not kept up its election promises. And I see this happening again because it's all about elections. It's all about the votes of the poor people and telling them you're going to get $5,000, but nothing will happen because the first thing they do when get into office is to give themselves money. To heck with the rest of the people. I have lost all respect for Dr. Thomas because of the sugar workers and because of what's happening in this economy.
There you go. So you come on here to chastise.
No. So because it's Dr. Thomas, everybody must say hail, hail, and agree to it? No. Dr. Thomas is not the only economist in this country.
And Dr. Hines, your final comments.
I think cash transfer is a proposal that is aimed at alleviating poverty. Poverty in Guyana is pegged at between 15 and 25%. It is a big problem in the country. And this is the first major commonsensical proposal that has been put on the table. The WPA says that we don't see this coming on board until 2025. We've also said it must be 10% of our takings. And so therefore, it's on the table. We welcome the fact that other players, other persons, and we welcome Mr. Mahadio to go and read the proposal, and so that we can have a very sensible discussion rather than this kind of emotional, ignorant nonsense. Because
it is not ignorance. I can tell you who is the ignorant here, because we can only go with your history. What you have done is screw this country up. That's what this current government has done. And now we're talking about election, about cash transfers to win who? We're not going to allow it. The citizens are not going to allow it.
You are not there in Guyana.
I am. Oh my God. Mr. Moderator, we can see who is the ignorant here. Anyway, good night.
Thank you very much.
The government has not been too excited about the idea of cash transfers. In fact, they feel that it might discourage people from being gainfully employed and instead depend on handouts. In other news, an interministerial committee has been launched to examine and discuss the proposed calendar of events for Guyana's momentous 50th Republic anniversary celebrations. The committee, led by Minister of Social Cohesion Dr. George Norton and Minister of Public Telecommunications Catherine Hughes, recently met in the boardroom at the Ministry of the Presidency, Department of Social Cohesion, Culture, Youth and Sport. The engagement, attended by representatives of various ministries, also included Dr. Palomo Mohammed, Deputy Vice Chancellor for Philanthropy, Alumni and Civic Engagement of the University of Guyana. During the meeting, Director of Culture Tamika Boatswain presented a drafted calendar of activities, and a number of recommendations were made, including the installation of a time capsule and extended invitations to international artists of Guyanese heritage, such as Black Panther's Latia Wright and singing sensation Rihanna. Within the next 2 weeks, the Interministerial Committee will be finalizing a number of recommendations, which will later be put forward to the Central Mashramani Committee when it is convened. In a bid to encourage public participation, the Ministry of the Presidency, Department of Social Cohesion, Culture, Youth and Sport has since extended a call for submission for the logo, theme and jingles specific to branding the slated events during the festival period, as well as submissions for the National Film Festival. That has brought us to the end of today's news. We wish you a safe and productive week ahead. Until next time, goodbye.